Welcome back, Nerd Squad. I gotta say, I am loving that I get to bring you these top 10 scary Black Knight facts. Lately, I have been a Mick Knight spouting Moon Knight and Black Knight facts, and that Knight crossover makes me really happy. So, who is the Black Knight? He is one of Marvel's oldest characters, actually predating their time as Marvel. The Black Knight came out of the days when Marvel was actually still Atlas Comics. In other words, in the comic book world, he is beyond medieval. He has been announced as a hero who we will get to see join the Eternals, which is interesting because he's not really an Eternal in the comics, but he is an ancient hero who comes to us from King Arthur's Round Table. And similar to King Arthur, his legend is also attached to a sword. Kit Harington is slated to be playing him in the upcoming MCU film, in which the Black Knight will appear. What's more interesting is with his British heritage, I feel like there will be a lot of potential for Marvel to be opening up the idea of exploring all of the UK heroes that we have so long been deprived of. I know I wouldn't mind a Captain Britain movie. As a fantasy nerd, I think the melding of both the superhero world and fantasy or medieval world can be pretty neat. Who knows, maybe we could even get a glimpse of Psylocke in a Captain Britain film. Anyways, enough pondering, let us get on with thine list of ye old Black Knight's most spookerific factuals. Number 10. Ebony Blade. The Black Knight is nigh immortal when wielding his magic sword. Originally, his power was attached to his Ebony Blade, a sword forged by Merlin out of meteorite. In fact, Percy would often pretend to be pretty clueless in order to hide his identity, but would transform whenever he brandished his sword. Not going to lie, I'm excited to see a hero that brings an ancient blade to an alien tech fight. I personally love Thor's weapon Mjolnir and the idea of someone fighting with old school but magic imbued weapons. It just makes me think of more classic mythological or historical tales. The tales that actually inspire even our high-tech heroes, to be honest. And I like when we are able to explore and get down to earth. Beyond that, this sword also comes with a curse that at one point transformed the current Black Knight, Dane Whitman, into a living statue. Number 9. He died. Well, the original Black Knight did. Sir Percy of Scandia was once the Black Knight, and after using the Ebony Blade to fight Mordred, he died. You might be remembering that I mentioned in my last point that he was, nigh immortal when wielding the blade, and you would be right, I did say that. However, Mordred was wielding a sword himself made of the same meteorite, and when Black Knight was stabbed with the blade, it went through even his ebony armor made from the same meteor as well, and he was wounded. How big was this meteor? Just making tons of weapons and armor out of it. Ergo, Percy was nigh invulnerable, but not quite, you see. He died from his injuries. But Merlin enchanted the blade with Percy's spirit, so his legacy would live on and pass down to whomsoever wielded the blade. So, not quite dead. Number 8. Trapped in the 12th century. To some, this may sound like a fantasy, but the 12th century was a pretty gross time, let's be honest. It was a time when many starved and often died of disease or the common cold. This was a time before advance where even if you didn't die in a highway robbery, your end was probably just around the corner, coming to you soon. Where, 30 years old was considered old. Granted, the Black Knight Dane Whitman didn't have to worry about these horrors as much as we would, as he was living in a comic book fantasy and is a superhero, so he kind of has immunity to some of these things. So how did this happen? How did he get to the 12th century? Well, Dane's consciousness was transported back in time after he was seemingly turned into stone by the Enchantress. The Avengers discovered this after trying to transform him back. Dane claimed though that he was good in the 12th century, where he was inhabiting the body of his ancestor Eobar Garrington, and busy protecting the past. The Avengers let him be, and he eventually returned to his own body back in the present, when Eobar's body perished. So, does that mean that Dane is his own ancestor? That's some Back to the Future stuff. Number 7. Villainous Past. Before Dane became the Black Knight, but after Sir Percy, there was Garrett. Nathan Garrett is an interesting fellow. He is a descendant of Percy's, who was a brilliant scientist and geneticist, who stumbled upon the tomb of the Black Knight and took up his mantle. However, he wasn't quite as noble as his ancestor, and he decided to use the powers of the Black Knight and Ebony. However, he wasn't quite as noble as his ancestor, and he decided to use the name of Black Knight and take up a life of crime, using his intellect to build gadgets that would assist him, including a robotic flying horse. crazy. He was also apparently a communist and a spy for the People's Republic of China, which seems kinda random. In the end, as he lay dying, he repented and confessed everything to his nephew Dane, imploring him to take up the mantle and redeem the Black Knight's name. Dane agreed and his uncle Nathan died. Poetic. Number 6. Danyoson. Okay, so this point is mostly scary because it is scary hard to understand. That, and if you imagine being linked to a person in this way, potentially against your will, it doesn't really sound fun. Basically, the Danyoson is like a psychic soulmate type bond, and this is how we will probably see Kit Harington's character, the Black Knight, brought into the MCU. Okay, here we go. So, the Black Knight in the comics was for a while linked to Circe, one of my favorite Eternals, through this bond called the Danyoson. The bond was created by Icarus after Dane went all crazy and tried to completely wipe out Circe because she kinda turned him down for a day. Or not really Dane, but Proctor, who is kind of like a bizarro evil alternate of Dane's. Anyways, Icarus creates a bond between Circe and Proctor, but this also affects the main continuity Dane from Earth 616. The two have a complex relationship. After the bond between them gets broken, Dane ends up killing Proctor, but Circe ends up getting injured. Dane feels guilty about the whole thing and travels around the multiverse with Circe while she heals. Eventually, she feels well enough to return to the modern day main continuity with Dane, but then, after Dane is sent back, appears to change her mind. So yeah, I guess we'll see what the MCU decides to do with that horrific mess of a comic story. Number 5. Stone Heart. He has a literal stone heart. I'm not making this one up. During the series Captain Britain and MI-13, while returning from a mission where Black Knight went to retrieve the Ebony Blade from Wakanda, it is revealed that his heart is actually made of stone. Also, the Ebony Blade certainly gets lost and moved around a lot later in the comics. It will be interesting to see if Kit Harington's Black Knight is maybe able to hold on to it a little more tightly than his comic book counterpart. Anyways, his squire or steward at the time, Feza, is a doctor whose life he saved, and she berates him for not letting her even speak to Storm during their visit, and for keeping things from her, including the fact that he has a stone heart. She alludes to it as a curse, but the Black Knight claims it was a gift from his ex, Circe. Ugh, is that really how hearts work? Like, do you feel less if your heart is made of stone? Or do you just die? My money's on dying. Number 4. He went crazy. More recently in the comics, Black Knight was actually driven mad by exposure to the blade. It was later revealed to him by historian Rebecca Stevens that the blade has driven everyone that has ever wielded it mad. Based on our understanding so far of the blade, I'm not quite sure how true that is, and apparently Dane was also skeptical. He dismissed Rebecca's claims, despite the fact that she shared the information along with an offer to help him. Black Knight didn't want to hear it though, probably because he was crazy. Number 3. Blood Wraith. Throughout his time in the comics, Black Knight acquires squires and stewards who aid him on quests. Very medieval times like. One such squire was Sean Dolan. However, during the Black Knight's time serving with the Avengers and assisting them while he was away from his squire, Sean got a hold of the Ebony Blade. Why was it unsupervised? I don't know. The Ebony Blade made him go completely evil and nuts when it harvested the souls of deceased Sloranians, turning Sean into Blood Wraith. Not even the Avengers could stop him. The best Scarlet Witch could do was strengthen Sean's bond to the blade, trapping him in Slorania. Okay, so maybe Rebecca was onto something. Number 2. Proctor. Ever imagine what would happen if Dane didn't fight so hard against the curse of the Ebony Blade? Well, imagine not, because Proctor is here. Why his name is so different from Dane's, we'll never know. But what we will get to know is what reality would be like if Dane just gave in to all the crazy that the Ebony Blade gives off. Proctor has his own Ebony Blade, and of course it is also very cursed, but this alternate version of the Black Knight just decided to give into it. Fighting does take a lot of work after all. The result was he went completely cuckoo crazy and evil. After being scorned by Circe, he killed her and went on a plot to kill all other alternate versions of her across the multiverse. This is where the Danyoson comes in and everything gets really confusing, but we already explained that, so you get the idea. Number 1. The Curse. Back to the curse of the Ebony Blade that I touched on earlier. After Dane returned back to the present after the death of Eobar in the past, you with me? He discovered that the blade had become more powerful, but also more cursed. In order to cure the blade of the blood curse that it had come down with, he was forced to expel Percy's spirit from it, setting it free. Which ultimately sounds like a good move, because trapping a spirit in a sword, even if you're Merlin and it's like for a good cause, still kinda seems like a terrible thing to do to someone. After Percy's spirit was free from the sword, it was cured, until the Submariner Namor got his hands on it, and used it to kill his literal monster of a wife at the time. Thanks for that, Namor. The curse then returned and double intensified, corrupting its user Dane. And if you haven't guessed it by this point, the curse doesn't seem to give up or stay cured, so yeah. Poor Dane. Thanks so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list and are as pleasantly surprised about Black Knight joining the MCU as I am. It's pretty random, but I think it could be really awesome. I wonder if he'll brood as much as Harrington's previous iconic Game of Thrones character Jon Snow. Let us know how you feel about the character and his future incorporation into the MCU in the comments below. Are you excited for the Eternals film? Yes or no? Do you think Cersei and Dane will have a similar connection, or that Dane will be involved with the Eternals in maybe a different way? And while you are on your way down to the comments, be sure to smash that sub, ring our bell, and click that like. I'll see you down there. Till next time, this is Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube.